I think we're almost 24 hours away from the inauguration of the 45th President of the United States. Where does he stand in an open society?
Well, I have described him as an imposter and con man and a would-be dictator. But he's only a would-be dictator because I'm confident that the Constitution and the institutions of America, of the United States, are strong enough. The division of power is in operation, and he would be dictator if he could get away with it, but he won't be able to.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. And unfortunately, there are people like that. And he has lifted them up. Turning up the volume and really working hard. Donald supported the invasion of Iraq.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
wrong.
Proved over and over again.
Wrong.
He actually advocated for the actions we took in Libya and urged that Gaddafi be taken out after actually doing some business with him one time. But the larger point, he says this constantly, is George W. Bush made the agreement about when American troops would leave Iraq, not Barack Obama. And the only way that American troops could have stayed in Iraq is to get an agreement from the then Iraqi government that would have protected our troops. And the Iraqi government would not give that. But
President Obama started mocking Trump mercilessly, mainly for the role Trump was playing in the birther movement that questioned whether Obama was really born in America.
No one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac?
Obama didn't hide his utter disdain for the reality TV star.
Obviously, we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience. For example, no, seriously, just recently, in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice, you, Mr. Trump, recognized that the real problem was a lack of leadership. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night.
The insults didn't stop with the president.
And welcome to a brand new edition of Hannity's America. We're glad you're with us, and we get right to our top story tonight, and it is the reaction to the first presidential debate on Friday night. One of the most talked about moments was Senator Obama playing fast and loose with the facts concerning a quote by former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Let's take a look.
Without precondition, you sit down across the table from someone who has called Israel a stinking corpse and wants to destroy that country and wipe it off the map. You legitimize those comments.
When we talk about preconditions, and Henry Kissinger did say we should have contacts without preconditions, the idea is that we do not expect to solve every problem before we initiate talks. The notion that we would sit with Ahmadinejad and not say anything while he's spewing his nonsense and his vile comments is ridiculous. Nobody's even talking about
So let me get this right. We sit down with Ahmadinejad and he says, we're going to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, and we say, no, you're not?
Yeah,
oh, please.
No,
by the way, my friend Dr. Kissinger, who's been my friend for 35 years, would be interested to hear this conversation and Senator Obama's depiction of his positions on the issue.
Now, shortly after the debate, Kissinger issued a statement in response saying, quote, that Senator McCain is right. I would not recommend the next president of the United States engage in talks with Iran at the presidential level. My views on this issue are entirely compatible with the views of my friend, Senator John McCain. We do not agree on everything, but we do agree that any negotiations with Iran must be geared to reality.
The parlous condition of the international system is symbolized by the latent competition between four visions of world order: the European, Westphalian, the Islamic, the Chinese, and the American. Consequently, none enjoy universal acceptance. Each model is tempted to maneuver for regional or global advantage. A struggle between regions could be even more destructive than the struggle between nations has been. By the same token, four scenarios emerge as possible catalysts of large-scale conflagration and as subjects for the quest for peace. First, a deterioration of Sino-American relations, whereby the two countries tumble into the so-called Thucydides trap, which history has said for every incumbent power and the rising power challenging it. Second, a breakdown of relations between Russia and the West, growing out of the paradox of mutual incomprehension between parallel cultures. Third, a continuing weakening of European strategic relevance because of Europe's loss of a sense of global mission. And fourth, an escalation of conflict of the Middle East in a competitive quest for hegemony between Sunni Arab states, revolutionary Iran, and outside powers taking one side or the other. These are the challenges the American president will confront in seeking to achieve international peace together with like-minded
and about the public perception of his presidency.
When you take a tour of the world, a lot of Americans email me with their fears that, you know, some days they wake up and it just feels to them like the end of the world is near, and you go from North Korea to Iran to Iraq to Afghanistan, and you look at how things have changed, how Americans are viewed overseas, if that is important to you. Do you have any moments of doubt that we fought the wrong war? That there's something wrong with the perception of America overseas?
Well, those are two different questions. Did we fight the wrong war? And absolutely, I have no doubt. The war came to our shores, remember that. We had a foreign policy that basically said, let's hope calm works. And we were attacked.
But those weren't Iraqis.
No, they weren't, no, I agree, they weren't Iraqis, nor did I ever say that Iraq ordered that attack, but they're a part of, Iraq is part of the struggle against the terrorists. Now, in terms of image, of course I worry about American image. We're great at TV, and yet we're getting crushed in the PR front. I personally do not believe Saddam Hussein picked up the phone and said to Al-Qaeda, attack America.
The folks who say you should have asked for some sort of sacrifice from all of us after 9/11, do they have a case looking back on it?
Americans are sacrificing. I mean, we pay a lot of taxes. The Americans sacrificed when they, when the economy went in the tank. Americans sacrificed when, air travel was disrupted. The American taxpayers have paid a lot to help this nation recover. I think Americans have sacrificed.
Mr. President, I know how much you love deep psychological examinations of yourself. While you were at Kennebunkport this last weekend, people talked about your relationship with your dad. People mentioned that former President Clinton has been a guest at Kennebunkport more often in the last few years than you have been.
Yes.
And there was a lot of speculation. Your spokesman, Tony Snow, recently all but said it's because of the way your father chose to end the first Gulf War that bin Laden saw weakness enough to strike the United States. Is there
Trying to figure out where you're going here.
Is there a palpable tension when you get together with the former president, who happens to be your father? A lot of the guys who work for him are not happy with the direction.
Oh, no, listen, my relationship is adoring son.
Do you talk shop?
Sometimes, yeah, of course we do, but that's a really interesting question. I mean, it's kind of conspiracy theory at its most rampant. My dad means the world to me as a loving dad. He gave me the greatest gift a father can give a child, which is unconditional love. And yeah, we go out and can float around there trying to catch some fish and chat and talk, but he understands what it means to be president. He understands oftentimes I have information that he doesn't have. And he also understands how difficult the world is today. And I explain my strategy to him. I explain exactly what I just explained to you down there about how I view the current tensions. And he takes it on board, and he leaves me with this thought: I love you, son.
If your administration ended today, would you be satisfied with the record thus far? Again, the view out there, I think if you asked 9 out of 10 presidential historians, high point, bullhorn in the rubble of the buildings that came down. Low point, we're standing on it. Is that fair?
First of all, there's no such thing as short-term history as far as I'm concerned. I think that you can't judge a presidency based upon a moment's notice. I believe you have to take eventually my standing in history will be judged by people 30 or 40 years from now who will be able to take an objective look at whether the decisions I made led to peace and prosperity. This is a job where you make decisions, and you do what you think is right, and you let people, but recognizing that people are going to say what's on their mind at the moment. But I read 3 histories of George Washington last year. The first president of the United States is still being analyzed by historians, which ought to say to this president and future presidents, do what you think is right, and eventually historians will figure out whether it made sense or not.
We always talk about what you're reading.
Look. The key for me is to keep expectations low.
Is that what everyone doesn't get?
I don't know, Brian, what they get or don't get. My life. Here's the thing. I don't. Here's the thing. The great thing about the presidency is you're totally exposed, and people spend a lot of time, particularly if you're making decisions and hard decisions. People spend a lot of time not only analyzing decisions, they analyze the decision maker, and I understand that. But a president must never let him let that get him off track.
Even if you're frustrated that we're getting something wrong.
You have to do what you think is. If we're getting something wrong, we change it.
How have you been read wrong?
Oh, I don't know about read wrong. I mean, I frankly don't pay that much attention to it. I don't want to hurt people's feelings about it.
Still not watching television, huh?
I watched a good baseball game.
Thanks for watching.